Thanks for staying with us. So over the weekend, the central bank ordered banks and other financial institutions to identify persons and entities operating cryptocurrency exchanges and close all such accounts. According to the CBN, dealing with cryptocurrency and facilitating payments through it is prohibited in the country. The decision by the Apex Bank is drawing outrage, especially among young people. Joining us on the show right now is Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr., who is an economist and the editor-in-chief of Stears Business. We have Olaoluwa Samuel-Biyi, a Forbes under 30 partner at Hacked Capital. And also, we should be joining us is Doctoral candidate on blockchain economics. No, sorry, actually, that's what he is, actually. Then, Senator Uba Sani, the chairman, Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and other financial institutions, will be speaking to us on the possible intervention by the Senate on this. So we have these three gentlemen to be joining us on this, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it before I come to the ladies. Oh, our guests are on already. Oh, fantastic. Yes. Hello. How are you doing, sirs? Hi, Mr. Afikuyomi. Good to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here.
Good, good, good. All right, so I might as well start with you on this issue. I mean, lots of young people are complaining about this fiat directive from the CBN. And we've seen reports by the CBN telling us the reasons why this was necessary. They have told us it's being used for money laundering, trafficking, the fact that it's not a regulated sector, which is a problem for the CBN. In your view, do these justifications agree with what you feel about the whole cryptocurrency ban? Let me start with you.
Yeah, good question.
Go ahead.
So I guess it's important context to say that this is not a problem that is specific to Nigeria. Cryptocurrencies are a worldwide instrument that are being used by almost all countries in the world. And the issue around the use of money or cryptocurrency being used for money laundering or terrorism activities, again, is a global problem. And it's not just also, it's good to have the context that that is not just the case with cryptocurrencies. Fiat money, so normal naira, dollar, also has problems with money laundering and terrorism activities. Now, the Nigerian government has taken a weird stance in terms of, or I guess the CBN has taken a weird stance instead of dealing with the problem. So while other countries like Canada and other advanced countries have improved their laws and improved the safety of the use of cryptocurrencies by increasing regulation, the CBN has decided to just go on an all-out ban. So the question is more around, did the CBN take the right approach in terms of dealing with the problem? The problem exists, and everybody knows there is a problem. But the question is, how do we actually deal with the problem? And it's the way in which the CBN has done that everybody has a problem with.
Right.
Yeah, so my question is to Olaoluwa. And for me, I think that also for many Nigerians who are watching, the first time, when we said we're doing cryptocurrency and I saw you and Tokunbo, I was like, every time you talk about cryptocurrencies, young, upwardly mobile people that you see. And so for many Nigerians, it seems to be something that only young people do, or it's something that benefits young people. It's still very much not a mainstream in Nigeria. Could you just give us, like in a few words, what it means and bring many Nigerians up to speed with what cryptocurrency is?
Happy to do that. Well, cryptocurrencies are, in the simplest terms, digital assets. They are instruments that are issued on the internet, on the blockchain, that represent some form of value based on what people choose to value them at, as with any other real-life asset. The uniqueness of this asset class is that it is secured on an infrastructure called the blockchain that prevents multiple ownership of the same type of asset. So it has the similar attributes of a real-world asset, just that the limitations that the digital world will present, where, for example, you could double spend a particular asset, two people who own the same thing, is removed based on the infrastructure and technology called the blockchain. So you're right that there's usually a generational divide in terms of the understanding of this type of asset class, and it is understandable given that younger people tend to be a bit more digitally savvy when it comes to things like the internet and technology. what we need to really avoid is where there is that generational war and lack of understanding where, a lot of things that are being made or policies that are being deployed by one generation without really taking into account the context and the consideration and the needs of the other generation.
Right.
So I want to go further with your conversation line of the generational gap and the fact that you cannot properly adjudge what you don't understand. There's very high likelihood that what we might need to do first is to educate our decision makers on the real benefits of this new industry. But first, I want to rant. I just want to rant. Because as a young Nigerian entrepreneur, it hurts. This policy flip-flop makes our planning as entrepreneurs tough. It makes our dreams tough to execute. It makes selling our ideas almost impossible to people. Because every day I talk about the cashew or investment opportunities to potential investors, and the first thing I hear is, what if Nigeria wakes up and says you cannot sell cashew? So it sounds ridiculous, but look at what they just did. In 1 minute, people who've built their business on cryptocurrency just wake up and their account is locked out. So same thing we had with Okada ban. Somebody you just hear it and you've invested money into this thing. So what was your first reaction to seeing that what was your career path now seems to be not allowed and illegal in Nigeria?
Well, my first instinct when I saw the circular was, one of disappointment, because, it really reveals a very, very shallow understanding of what is going on in the industry. You find a lot of Nigerians, potentially up to 1 million, with interactions and touch points to the cryptocurrency ecosystem. And if you're a Nigerian that is in any way mobile, you will know that there is almost what seems like a global international conspiracy against enabling Nigerian young people to pay and to get paid. There is no policy today or no infrastructure development or no private sector improvement that can potentially engage enough Nigerian youths productively. What needs to be done is to enable these people to be able to get paid and seek employment or seek engagement internationally. And you've seen it with large populations in places like India and places like China. But as a Nigerian, there is today no more effective or efficient way to get paid something as little as $50, which is more than our monthly minimum wage, via the internet, via traditional banking rails, without going through something like cryptocurrency. And Nigerians have found this channel as a way to import capital to get paid across the world. And if you look at the profile of people that are using cryptocurrencies and what they're using it for, if you had a conversation with any of them, they will tell you exactly what they're using this asset class for.
Let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation with you both. Thank you. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we still have our guest here. We're waiting for if we can bring in a government official at some point to comment on this. But in the meantime, we still have our guest, Tokunbo Afikuyomi. My question is to you, Tokunbo. Tokunbo, you're an economist, and I think you should understand why many governments are nervous about this issue of crypto assets, mainly because they can't be regulated. Many governments can't even tax it. It's hard for government to actually monitor the transactions ongoing. So there is the group of people doing it for the right reasons, young people creating industries. And there are people taking advantage of this gap to traffic weapons into the country, traffic illicit drugs and all that, using crypto as a means of exchange. So you can understand the nervousness of the government. In your view as an economist, what approach do you think is the best for the government to take to stop or to even reduce these illegal transactions ongoing via crypto?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So you're right. It's a very big problem where you have agents using some of the uses of crypto to move money around in a negative fashion. And what the government needs to do is basically improve the regulation around the use of cryptocurrency. So banks, for example, are monitoring bank accounts and have many anti-money laundering and terrorist procedures in place to make sure that money is not used for the wrong reasons. Now, for now, cryptocurrencies don't have that type of regulation. And that's what's making central banks very nervous. The other thing, from an economic point of view, that makes cryptocurrencies look like a threat to central banks or governments is that the more cryptocurrencies increase in adoption, so the more people use cryptocurrencies as normal money, for example, the less central banks have an ability to influence monetary policy. So the only thing central banks exist for is to control money supply. And so if more and more people are using cryptocurrencies for their money and their payments, that reduces the ability of the central bank to control the financial system. And so that is what is making them nervous.
And so what needs to happen is that we can't even trace where the money is coming from. So there are two parties exchanging, and it's difficult. Shouldn't that be a problem for you as an economist?
Yeah, no, of course, that is a big problem, but it's not impossible. There are countries that are able to do this tracing, because if you increase the regulation and increase the KYC, for example, on exchanges, if you use a cryptocurrency exchange, or if you increase the KYC requirements on those, like the same way you have with banks, you are able to get information, right? Right. Other countries have caught people that have used cryptocurrencies for bad reasons. It's not impossible to do that. You just need to increase the regulation around it.
Okay, so
I mean, something that was also mentioned on a previous conversation was that how this is kind of like a generational divide between the youth and the old. But I want to make something clear in terms of what this policy means in terms of this impact. It's not just a policy that's impacting cryptocurrencies or the youth generation. The way in which this policy was implemented has a big effect, a big negative effect on Nigeria's business environment. Whether it's cashew, whether it's cryptocurrency, the manner and the fashion in which it was done just sends a very red signal to any investor, domestic or foreign, that doing business in Nigeria, you can wake up one morning and your entire revenue stream, your entire career can go out the window. So I just wanted to stress that as well.
Okay, so you understand that Nigeria right now is going through, many challenges, especially when it comes to things like insecurity. I mean, that's something we discuss every day now in Nigeria. And when the government comes out and says this is something that is used to finance terrorism, I'm sure you can understand why many Nigerians would sort of agree with government. So what is it that, and then, you just made a point about being able to trace it. But we know that right now, even with the fiat money, the regular Nigerian money, when it comes to kidnapping and things like that, we're unable to trace some of these transactions. So is it then a surprise that the government would rather ask that this be banned, at least within the banks, because that's what I hear this particular circular was about the banks involving themselves in businesses like this, until Nigeria can figure itself out concerning how to trace even regular Nigerian money first, before we talk about these technological innovations. So the question is, do you understand the fear?
Go ahead.
Well, it's important to note that cryptocurrency transactions are only untraceable and anonymous if they are done peer-to-peer, if they are done outside of formal exchanges. What is ironic is that the action by the authorities were targeted at exchanges that today objectively have more robust KYC and AML rules and processes than even traditional banks. You cannot move money in and out of a standard exchange in Nigeria today into an account that is not your own in your name. You verify that account with your bank statement, you do some address verification for certain transaction limits, your account is flagged for regular transactions, you have your pictures taken and your bank statements taken from you if you're going to transact with the cryptocurrency exchange. So the only touch points that the authorities and law enforcement have with even monitoring and understanding what's going on in the cryptocurrency space is via these exchanges. In taking this action, they have moved formal, traceable, and regulatable, if that is a word, transactions away from these formal exchanges and move them more into the black market, into the shadow economy, creating even further liquidity for these assets in that economy. And this is just countering exactly the spirit of what they're trying to achieve. Now, what most countries of the world do, and most countries that are progressive and trying to look at this industry as one that potentially will be profitable, is that they work with these exchanges directly to ensure that there are suspicious activity reports that are sent out to the authorities, there are specific KYC-ML rules, there are taxation rules that have been extracted out of these platforms and all of these things, because the only way you can get a handle on the cryptocurrency market is by ensuring that it's formalized via regulated exchanges and working with them directly with their expertise and technology to make it happen.
Right. All right. I have to go on a quick break again. When I come back, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we still have two young men with us. We're trying to get our government official, but unfortunately, he can't be with us at this time. So we'll still be on this story sometime this week. But we still have our two young men, Mr. Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr., economist and editor-in-chief of Stears Business, and Mr. Olaoluwa Samuel-Biyi, a Forbes under 30 partner at Hackett and the doctoral candidate on blockchain economics. Yes, Topo had a question for them.
So I want to take it from, so I've already expressed my displeasure with this policy, but I want to try and wear the shoes of our policymakers and try to understand where they're coming from. A bunch of young people are trading and making money, and they cannot be, we cannot fully regulate or control what they're doing. There are countless stories online of scammers, people that in the name of we will help you buy invest in cryptocurrency, take people's money out, and then they don't get refund. So, and then there's a lot of insecurity, and they say these monies might be funded by this economy, this shadow economy, this crypto. So, understanding where the government is coming from, how would you advise this be approached so that we don't, in a way to encourage young people, don't create a problem that we can't solve?
Yeah, there is no country in the world where cryptocurrency is legal tender, right? The default stance of any authority is that only a government issued assets can be legal tender. So that is understood. What we need to do is to be in the company of progressive countries that have figured out how to really formalize this market and protect participants in the industry. You look at most of the advanced nations, the US, Canada, the UK, most of Europe. What they've done is create a regulatory regime for cryptocurrency players.
Can you mention an African country, please? Sorry. Can we mention an African country? Because it's sort of like we're comparing ourselves, it's like day and night. We're very far from them. We're an underdeveloped country. So is there any African country that's getting it right?
Well, Nigeria is actually the leader already in this space, so it's going to be a disfavor to the country to compare ourselves with people who are following. But even then, you have countries like South Africa that have active exchanges that are working in the market, and in those markets, a lot of these exchanges are considered to be things, for example, in Canada, money service businesses, in the US, an exchange is going public, and if we are to become progressive as a nation, as become more technology advanced, we want to really be comparing ourselves in the company of this type of nations, not companies like Kyrgyzstan, Venezuela.
Let me pause you for a second, because
economic example.
Olaoluwa, Nigeria is like the second, I think, in the world. I think in Africa, $200 million, the value of the volume, $200 million every single month. There's no government that's going to close their eyes to that. That's a lot of money going back without government regulation.
Well, you shut it down.
So you can understand where they're coming from. Another factor is that young people who understand this industry, we don't see them actually trying to push for government understanding. I mean, I would like to see more structured. I mean, there's somebody who was saying, let me just quote the gentleman, a crypto analyst, Sankara Osareme, was saying that the Nigerian government has succeeded in giving cryptocurrency the highest form of advertisement in Africa with this their ban, suggesting that people are going to go backdoor to get this thing done. This black market channel, could you explain it to us so we understand what the government can, maybe the government can use this to understand how best to manage it, because no government is going to sit back and see transactions of $200 million monthly going through their own banks without them having some kind of regulatory function.
Yeah, $200 million is not going to disappear tomorrow because of the banking channel ban, right? It's going to continue. It's going to persist. Just that it's just going to become unseen and invisible. Today, the way that happens via some channels is that you want to transact in cryptocurrency, you go to an exchange that is formal with principles that are known. You go there, submit your government-issued identification, and you make that transaction with a trusted party. That way, The government can know who is transacting, what they're transacting, where they are, and if there's any illicit activity going on with that transaction, they can identify who is responsible and effect an arrest. They can also create frameworks to see that volume, tax it, for example, or even grow it and make sure that it's being used for productive activity. What is going to happen now, as we've seen with examples in places like Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela, is when the banking channels are plugged, this transaction moves away from these formal traceable channels into a black market, into WhatsApp groups, into Telegram groups where people say, hey, you have Bitcoin, I want to buy, you have Bitcoin, I want to sell. And they send it to each other on a peer-to-peer basis without having a Bitcoin or crypto as a reference in the bank transfer. It's still going to the bank system, it's still flowing, it's a little bit more difficult and it has a little bit more friction. But now it's impossible to control, it's impossible to manage, and it's impossible to regulate. And it's this type of environment that cryptocurrencies were developed specifically to thrive. So if any government or any authority wants to get a hold or a handle on that volume, on that transaction on 200 million a month, they need to make sure that they're working with exchanges, trying to get all of these volumes on these type of platforms so that they can at least work with known principles to see what's going on and control it.
Right.
So my question is for Tokunbo. We have mentioned countries who have embraced cryptocurrency and its other, associated businesses, but there are countries who have banned it as well.
I can't hear you very clearly.
Okay, we've talked about countries. We've mentioned countries who have accepted cryptocurrency, right? But there are countries that have banned it. We have countries like China. Some people even say that many of the EU countries also are not comfortable with this. So obviously, to the Nigerian government, this shows that many people say this shows that Nigeria is not completely, out of
place.
Yeah, out of place by banning it. If countries, especially China, a country that we do a lot of business with, if such a country could ban it, do we know the reason why? Because for me also, looking at the countries that have been mentioned, they're politically, they are much more, would I say, like an authoritative kind of government. Is it more about politics, or is there something about the economics of these countries that Nigeria is looking into and seeing the similarities with ours, and that's why they have banned it?
Yes, it's a very good question, and it's interesting because one of the reasons why cryptocurrency is so popular in Nigeria is because of all the restrictions and all the difficulties that exist with the Naira. So you have inflation on the Naira, and you have depreciation of the exchange rate. So when you include that with the difficulties in terms of sending money abroad or receiving money from abroad, what you have is a difficult environment with the Naira. And so the reason why cryptocurrencies are actually popular in Nigeria is to circumvent those difficulties that we have. And so what those other countries you mentioned also have in common are those problems. So places like Zimbabwe, very popular for cryptocurrency because the Zimbabwe dollar is, we know the problems that happen there with how worthless the currency becomes.
Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately, that's all we can take on this. We thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. It's quite important for us to have... Yes, can you hear me? It's quite important.
Sorry, I think I lost you for a second.
Yes, unfortunately, we have to wrap up on this conversation. I wanted to thank the two gentlemen for joining us this morning, Mr. Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr., the Economist and Editor-in-Chief of Stears Business, and Mr. Olaoluwa Samuel-Biyi, a Forbes under 30 partner at Hackett Capital and also a doctoral candidate on blockchain economics. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. We appreciate your thoughts. As I said, we're supposed to have a government official to give us some clarity, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But as I said, the conversation will continue throughout the week because we need understanding. And once we understand, maybe people will be able to perceive the whole situation better. Let's go on a break now. When we come back, we had a news from Ekiti State that caught our attention. Stay with us. We'll be right back.